Hello everyone and welcome to the NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday the 7th of June 2021. It's Gary Gillen here and I'm your host for this week's edition, and I hope everyone is doing just great this week. Before we get going on the main content for the pod for this week, I have to say that I did get a lot of feedback after last week's pod that it was actually too short at 23 minutes long as opposed to the kind of 28 to 30 odd. So this week I do promise to try to keep it over 30 minutes for everyone, just so that you have your weekly fix of me and NARSA. Of course, not one single listener actually said anything remotely like that for last week's pod, so I'm just going to keep going and see how long it lasts. It just lasts as long as it lasts, so we'll see how it flies for this week. From an RTV perspective for this week, it is indeed business as usual on that front in terms of tying up season 2020-2021 payments so that we can pay RTV and move forward with our 2021-22 season planning. And once again, thank you to all clubs who have paid, and I do believe that we just have a few more clubs to figure out what's happening, and then we can get this one over the line and complete. So we'll be looking very much forward to doing that. But thanks again to everybody who has helped us get to this spot already. From a shout-outs perspective for this week, I wanted to give specific shout-outs to some outgoing NARSA Executive team members who relinquished their positions at Saturday's AGM. A wee bit more about the AGM a little bit later on, but I would like to give specific kudos and shout-out to NARSA Executive Regional Directors Fraser, Currie, Morag, McInnes and Alex Black for all of their help, support and dedication to the NARSA cause during their respective tenures. As you may know, their tenures were actually increased by an additional year. They were supposed to have been up in 2020, but we did extend to 2021, and to a person, without hesitation, they all put their hands up when the proposal surfaced to respect the world circumstances at the time in relation to the COVID impacts that we were all experiencing and extend their tenure and the entire executive committee's tenures by another year to make it a 3-year stint instead of a 2-year stint, which is the regular time frame that we have. Fraser was on the executive for 3 years, Morag for 4 years and Alex for 5 years. So in total, if you can work out the math here, it's 12 years of dedication provided to NARSA that I know for a fact they could have used elsewhere to spend with their friends, with the family, doing more work, doing something else that they enjoy doing. So to give their spare time on a volunteer capacity for NARSA is a fantastic gesture, and one that I will never ever take for granted with anyone who puts their hand up to help NARSA on an ongoing basis. I did thoroughly enjoy working with and getting to know each of them through what ended up being a significant period of progressive change for NARSA. So again, I would like to place on record my sincere thanks to all three for giving up their time in support of our wonderful association. Thank you very much, folks. From a convention perspective, the update this week is that we have indeed signed our addendum with Planet Hollywood for additional rooms and the securing of more convention space to allow us to put more tickets on sale. Where we're at right now is determining exactly how many spaces we can have, or how many bums and seats I should say, we can have seated at the Grand Banquet on the Saturday night, as this truly governs how many tickets that we can sell for the event. And right now we don't know the exact number, as the plans that they sent us last week did not include the entire stage for the live band, the dance floor and the VIP top table, which, as I mentioned last week, takes a significant amount of space. So we have asked them to go back and add those parts in, and then we can determine the true space availability in the main celebrity ballroom, which is the main space that we have secured for the event. As we also discussed on last week's pod, we did indeed do the canvas of of folks who didn't manage to secure tickets to date, so that we would have a true understanding of what sort of shortfall that we are facing for folks who need tickets but haven't yet got them secured. And we now do have a better understanding of the challenge that we're facing. At the time of recording this, which is just after 7 p.m. Mountain Time and on Monday evening, we have 1,465 people on that list. Now that's in addition to the 1,300 spaces that we've already sold, which would then take our event up to approximately 2,800, maybe just a bit shy of 2,800 bears from across the globe. So now herein lies the challenge. The Celebrity Ballroom, once we get the confirmed numbers, will hold approximately 1,800 people. And actually, here's a wee tidbit. Believe it or not, the first number they came back to us with, without the VIP top table that was missing, was 1872. 1872. No joke. I thought the guy was kidding. And I says, oh, hardy har, that's kind of funny. And he's like, what? And I explained what 1872 meant to us, and he was like, get out of town. So a bit of banter there, and a wonderful number. The number will be a bit less than 1872 when they add in the top table. But that leaves us roughly about 1,000 short. And as I mentioned last week, we do have another option of securing their mezzanine space, and now I can give you a wee bit of education on that. I can confirm that this particular mezzanine in Planet Hollywood is indoors. So it's not carte blanche that all mezzanines, is that proper English or grammar? I'm not sure, but they are not all outdoors. So we don't have to worry about anyone collapsing with heat stroke during the dinner if we take them up on this option. But the mezzanine will give us approximately about another 500 more spaces, which, if you're keeping track of this set of mathematics, would mean that we're still approximately 500 short. So, as I mentioned over the last few weeks, our intention for this one specific convention is to try and accommodate all bears who want to be there. And I'm not sure if that's going to be possible, but that's certainly our main philosophy as we go forward. So we are going to chat with the hotel again and see if we can manage any more in the mezzanine and then take it from there. So please stay tuned. So all that to say, from a next steps perspective, we will be putting tickets on sale later this week for NARSA clubs only. As I mentioned a couple of pods ago, some NARSA clubs had missed the boat on the original sale. And then the remaining tickets will go on general sale next week. So if you're waiting on general sale tickets, you can relax for the remainder of this week. I promise you we will not be putting any more on sale for general sale until week commencing the 14th, and I suspect it won't be on Monday exactly, but we'll figure that one out a wee bit closer to the time. And as always before, we will give everyone as much notice as we possibly can and make sure that you're set up for success to give you the best chance to get the tickets. So another plug for our convention frequently asked questions document that's been discussed over a number of weeks now. It's up on our website and has also been communicated out. Lots of practical information about the convention will be able to be viewed there. And as I did mention earlier, I think maybe I hopefully mentioned it on the blurb a wee bit earlier here as well, that we do have more hotel rooms secured, and we are going to communicate that at the time of communicating the ticket sales as well. But suffice to say, if you were trying for hotel rooms before and you do have the passkey link, that you can go there and secure your rooms, and I would encourage you to do that as quickly as you can. And one almost last wee thing on the convention front is that we have been approached by, just for this specific convention, approached by a number of travel agencies back home to help them understand better how best to service the Rangers market for people planning to come over for the event. And with how busy things have been for the executive this past while in preparation for the AGM and wrapping up the RTV season, and of course enjoying 55 celebrations, which lasted for quite some time, we haven't managed to actually sit down with any of them just yet, but we do plan to do that in the next wee while. And when I say the next wee while, I'm really talking about the next few days, this week sometime. And I'm not 100% sure truly right now as I sit here recording this as to where this will go, but if there is something that we can do for our friends and family of NARSA back home who are coming to visit us, that will get them over to Vegas on time, safe and sound, and in an appropriate accommodation, relatively sober, then we'll certainly look to do that. So stay tuned for more information over the next wee while, and hopefully I'll have something more concrete to share on that on next week's pod. So finally, on the convention front, once again, as I mentioned last week, I keep saying that, but one major item that we talk about on our AGMs is selecting future potential convention host venues. And as I had mentioned, we did have the 2023 convention slot completely wide open. No one had put an expression of interest in, and there was no rumblings, even just through the rumour mill, about anyone being interested in it. However, during discussions at the AGM on Saturday, we did have expressions of interest from no fewer than 3 clubs from both Canada and the United States. So we now have some options to explore over the next wee while in terms of where we could potentially be going in 2023, and we've already started conversations with the folks on that as well. So more to share on that over the next wee while, but a 2-year cycle is required because it takes 2 years to properly plan a convention. So we will get moving on that fairly quickly to make sure that we have each of the clubs set up for success to put their packages in if they're still interested in bidding, and then move on from there to get a vote and then decide exactly where we're going to be. So with a little bit of a segue there into the AGM, alongside the 2023 discussions, we did have a full agenda that we covered in entirety in just over 2 hours this past Saturday morning my time and Pacific time. It was the early afternoon for our East Coast clubs, and we did have 17 clubs represented, which constitutes 50% of our existing membership. And I have to say, I honestly don't know what more we can do to try and encourage people to take an interest in the admin or business side of our operations, and give up a couple of hours of their time once or twice per year for the betterment of the association. If anyone out there has any ideas on how best to encourage participation to these, then I'm all ears. I'm more than willing to listen to anyone with any ideas on that, because it does get a little bit disheartening when we see that level of apathy from clubs. However, I sincerely hope that maybe the online thing put people off on this occasion. We did have 1 or 2 technical issues with some of the clubs represented there. Not insurmountable. We did manage to get them connected, and instead of having them say, yes, I agree, we would get a thumbs up from Willie Smith in Niagara, for example. So that was good fun. But I do sincerely hope that this is our last ever forced online annual general meeting, and that we'll get back to normal and host them all face-to-face at our conventions from this point forward. The main highlights to speak of were the 2 constitutional change motions that were put to the floor were successfully passed. So we now have a system in place that will financially reward future convention host clubs, which we've never had before, which I'm absolutely thrilled to get through. And we also have a fundamental new structure for our NARSA Executive that's more befitting of our operations today, and truly sets us up for success going forward. So gone are the regional director roles and the assistant secretary role, and we now have 4 functional directors to replace these. So your new NARSA executive structure looks like this. The president is me. Yes, believe it or not, it's me. So for the first time in NARSA history, we have president running consecutive terms, and the Constitution does allow for this, with the caveat that no one else on the existing NARSA executive puts their name forward to run, and that's how things materialised. We weren't sure if that was going to be the case or not, up to and including the convention. Of course, any of the existing, or I guess former existing, NARSA executive members could have put their name forward on the day if they felt like it, but they didn't, and I was fortunate enough to be nominated to put my name forward, and I did, and I'm happy to be serving the membership again for a further 2 years. So a little bit of history made there, and quite exciting if you're into all that sort of stuff. So the president is me once again. Vice president is my good friend Brian Campbell. Secretary Sandra Hawthorne again for, oh my goodness, this must be Sandra's 5th or 6th consecutive term, something like that. Certainly a very, very long tenure, dedicated volunteer for NARSA. So thank you once again to Sandra for everything that she does behind the scenes and in front of the scenes as well. The treasurer position, right now, over the last 2 years, Sandra actually played dual roles and did secretary and treasurer, but we're splitting those apart now because we want a dedicated person to look after the money. However, we didn't get anyone putting their name forward for treasurer just yet, so that position is vacant for right now. And then the 4 directors that we have, the communications director is now a new entrant to the NARSA Executive. Scott Allen from the Bramalea Rangers Supporters Club has stepped up and stepped in to be our new communications director. So congratulations, Scott, and thank you very much for stepping up and welcome aboard. The convention director has been filled by Billy Ferguson, who you will know is a twice past president of NARSA and was previously our assistant secretary for the last couple of terms there. So congratulations to Billy and thank you for stepping up into this very critical role for us. And there's absolutely no pressure, Billy, on you to deliver the biggest convention in NARSA's history in 2022 without a hitch. Nope, none at all. Now, Billy will be supported by the team and we'll make sure that NARSA 2022 is a home run. Then the next one we have is a broadcast RTV director. Alan McWatt is the person who has stepped up for this, and Alan was formerly our Southwest regional director and very willingly put his hand up very early in the process to help us shape the strategic future of the partnership between RTV and NARSA. And honestly, I can't wait to see how this goes now with someone dedicated to the role over the next little while. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Alan can do with that portfolio. And the last director that we have is the marketing and sponsorship director, and that too, like the treasurer role, is vacant as well. So that's another thing that we'll be adding to the list of things to do. And then we have the past president, David Fletcher, from Vancouver Rangers Supporters Club as well. So for the open positions, we will be actively recruiting for these in the coming weeks to get ourselves up to the full complement of people that we need to help support the membership and NARSA business in general. So if you or you know anyone who is a member in good standing at an affiliated NARSA club and they have skill sets in either treasurying or marketing and sponsorship, and they have the time and desire to help us move both of these roles and the association forward, please don't hesitate to have them or you have yourself get in touch with me directly and we can certainly have a chat. I can be reached at rangersSCC@hotmail.com. That's 2 S's and 2 C's, and we would be delighted to have a chat about that as we go forward. And the last major thing that we covered, and this is a little bit of a coup because I haven't, as I say this out loud now, I haven't put this in my notes and I haven't also communicated to the club as well, but I'm delighted to let you know that we have a new associate member club of NARSA. The Salt Lake City Rangers Supporters Club were unanimously voted in by all of the clubs present to be our first ever associate membership club and the newest entrant to the NARSA family. So congratulations and thank you to the folks down there for trying to establish a bona fide Rangers presence in Salt Lake City, and we will communicate with the folks and maybe even try and get them on the pod over the next wee while to ask them what prompted the journey to get themselves to an associate status with NARSA. So very, very pleased to have them on board and delighted. And as I say, we'll mention a wee bit more about that if we can get them on board. And I'm actually just going to open up the application here so that I can give them a proper shout out. So the president is Raymond Hollowell, the vice president is Annie Hollowell, and their secretary is Jeffrey Goff. Yes, Jeffrey Goff, spelt exactly like the captain as well. So sincere thank you to Raymond, Annie and Jeffrey for creating a bit of history and getting us a presence in Salt Lake City in Utah as well. So immediately after I finish this pod, I'm going to frantically email them so that this is not a huge surprise if they happened to be listening to the pod this week. So great news on that. And we did cover an array of different topics through the agenda, and we will get the minutes sorted out and out to each club for your perusal shortly. And by shortly, I mean in the next week or so there. From a communications perspective this week, some things I wanted to mention. Firstly, and probably the most important one for right now for this week, is that around the most recent share issue that's been issued by the club. You've most likely seen or heard about it in this past couple of weeks almost, but if you haven't, the Rangers, I guess, are in the expression of interest stage for right now, and you can visit the Tifosi website, which is the partner that Rangers are using for this share issue, and register interest before this Friday's deadline. There's a deadline of, I believe it's just before 6 p.m. UK time this coming Friday, and what the club are keen to point out, that this expression of interest that you would put in on the Tifosi website does not constitute a commitment for you to purchase any shares, but what it does do is give you exclusive access, which the club are calling a priority period for 1 week to go in and purchase the number of shares that you would like after the closing closes. The closing closes after the deadline closes this coming Friday. So I was asked when it first got communicated, I guess around about the middle of last week, what it meant for overseas bears, as there was some initial early stage rumblings that there were some restrictions placed on bears that were out with the UK shores. And here is what the club responded with, and if you forgive me, I'm just going to read this out here. None of the securities made available through Tifosi have been or will be registered under the applicable securities laws of the USA, Canada, Australia or Japan. Neither an investment offering nor its accompanying offer documentation constitute an offer to sell or the solicitation of an offer to buy securities in any jurisdiction in which such offer or solicitation is unlawful and, in particular, is not for distribution into the USA, Canada, Australia or Japan. Therefore, persons accessing any offering or document should inform themselves about and observe any such restrictions. Recipients represent and warrant to the issuer of any securities and Tifosi that they are able to receive offering documentation without contravention of applicable legal or regulatory restrictions in the jurisdiction in which they reside, conduct business or receive it. Some of that was a bit of a tongue twister there, but I got there. So what this basically means is the club cannot directly promote to the countries mentioned. Obviously, USA and Canada is our main bread and butter here in North America, but also to our colleagues over in ORSA as well as Japan. So they cannot promote to these countries, but if they find out about it, folks in those countries that is, then the responsibility is on the investor from that country to inform themselves of any local regulatory restrictions and follow the applicable laws that would govern that particular geographic region as well. Clear as mud? Maybe yes, maybe no, but there is a deadline this week. If you know about local laws and restrictions in your area and you know that purchasing shares in this would not contravene any of those, then the club would be delighted to have you on board as a bona fide shareholder. We will put the website to Tifosi on the blurb for this week's podcast, and then you can go take a peek and see if you're interested if you've not done so already. Secondly, from a communications perspective, I just wanted to mention, this has been ongoing for a couple of weeks now, but the Champions Wall that the club has launched, which is a wall at Ibrox dedicated to being a pictorial homage to Rangers fans in a mosaic style that will be forever commemorative of our world record 55th championship title. And on the website, on the club website, they say Rangers are delighted to unveil the Rangers Champions Wall, a landmark installation next to Ibrox Stadium that will allow supporters to share their memories and photographs in a unique photo mosaic that will proudly display a selection of our most famous legends and moments. The centre of the mosaic will capture Steven Gerrard lifting the trophy for our historic and coveted 55th league title. The iconic image will be joined by 8 other champions from our glorious history, such as greatest ever Ranger John Greig and our 9-in-a-row captain Richard Gough. It goes on to explain a wee bit more about how they were selected and what you can do to do that. I believe it's around about £45 to get your face on history there, and we will put the link to the Champions Wall site there. If you haven't done so, please go ahead and do that. I think it's such a great idea and something that you could go up like the bricks that they've done for quite some time now, that you can go and take friends and family and show them very proudly that you're part of the club. This past week, Rangers also announced an associate partnership with Dam Health. By confirming, Rangers are delighted to welcome Dam Health, one of the leading providers in the UK for COVID-19 testing, as the club's official COVID-19 testing partner. We now have a COVID-19 testing partner. And through the associate partnership with Rangers, Dam Health will benefit from brand visibility on the new mid-tier LED system at Ibrox Stadium and will provide mobile testing sites on match days for supporters. And what I really liked about this was the quote from Professor Frank Joseph, who is Dam Health's medical director, and he commented on the partnership by saying, "We are thrilled and honoured to be working with the historic and prestigious football club Rangers and look forward to developing a thriving relationship with them. At Dam Health, we have a range of test methods to help get fans safely back into Ibrox and get the iconic stadium full of noise and energy again." I don't know what it was about that comment or that statement from Professor Joseph, but it just really kind of stirred up. You know, the whole point is to get people back. It's very good and proactive, of course, once again from the club, to ensure the safety and well-being of all of our fans as we move forward into the new normal back home for visitors to the stadium on a regular basis. But just another phenomenal bit of proactive strategy by the club to say, we are in. You know, our fans are our biggest asset and we are going to do everything we can to help and protect them. And it just seems to be that every partnership that we seem to strike up, they just strike a chord by saying the right things, or certainly the right things to my ears and eyes anyway, that gives me a warm feeling that they're just joining the family, you know, and that they're getting involved in things that are meaningful for our fan base. Lastly, on the comms front for this week, and it kind of involves NARSA, not so much Rangers per se. And it's basically on these podcasts. So you'll remember we started these podcasts back in December 2020, primarily as an alternative communication vehicle for our members and friends after the closing down of the Yahoo email platform that we had been using for ages beforehand. And my personal commitment at the time was to see how it went, and if it wasn't utter crap and junk, we would continue to do it up to and including this pod today, you know, after the AGM, and then see where the new NARSA Executive wanted to take it. And I'm happy to say, with me continuing in the president's role for the next 2 years, that we will and can and will truly commit to solidifying the podcast as one of our staple communication vehicles, and also look to research and investigate potential areas to take it forward and evolve it over time for whatever our listeners would like. So I will be working closely with communications subcommittee and of course with Scott Allen, our new communications director, to see what avenues of opportunity exist for us. And of course, as always, I have lots of ideas that I'm going to table now that we have the next 2 years of runway where we can really bed this in and do a good job and not replicate what other people are doing, and provide some meaningful content that our members and friends would like to listen to over the years and just over the coming years, yeah, for sure. And just a wee aside on that, today is our 25th weekly update show. It's our silver anniversary today, no less. So on that, just please stay tuned and please don't hesitate to provide any feedback you have directly to me or to Scott Allen in and around the podcast offerings as we move forward. So in closing, this week we don't have any interviews lined up just yet, but as I mentioned, or kind of promised or hinted over the last wee while, we do have some in the hopper, and we can, with the AGM in a rear view mirror, and once we get the ticket situation sorted for NARSA 2022 and get our RTV payments completely squared up and our strategy for next season's RTV offering, then we can start to use the summertime to put some of these interviews into play and give you some entertainment over the period of time before our beloved club gets back on the pitch in earnest. So in closing, once again folks, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to listen, and please do share it with anyone that you think might enjoy it. And until this time next week, thank you very much again. Take care. All the very best. Cheerio.